إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. This is just a short recording related to the importance of learning Aqīdah, and the reason for that is twofold. Or for the recording is twofold. The first is just as an introduction to the recordings that will be coming and the lessons that will be coming shortly regarding Aqīdah, and secondly, as a way to dispel some of the myths that are spread by some of the current day preachers, especially those that are more referred to as celebrity da'is or celebrity scholars or celebrity preachers, or however you want to refer to them. So to begin with, the word Aqīdah, where does it come from? We don't have it in the Quran, we don't have it in the Sunnah, so why is it used? This is a very easy answer. The answer is it's a terminology. So like many things in terminology that we have now, we didn't have them, they're not mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, but they don't contradict the Quran and the Sunnah, and they're a way to clarify or simplify things for people when it comes to concepts. And there's a saying that many scholars use, which is لا مشاحة في الاصطلاح, which generally or roughly translates as that there's no indisputability when it comes to terminology, meaning that when it comes to terminology, nothing has to be set in stone, as long as that the terminology being used, doesn't contradict the Quran and the Sunnah, and it gives a better understanding for people, then there's no issue with using it. So Aqīdah originally, linguistically, has to do with a knot or something being tied tightly. And when it comes to Islamic terminology, it has to do with beliefs. And the reason, or the tie between the two definitions, the linguistic and the Islamic terminology definition, is that when someone believes something, it's as though their heart has been tied tightly with it, or it's been tied tightly within their heart. So this is a basic explanation of the definition. Originally, if we look to the Salaf, to the earlier generations, what they would refer to Aqīdah as Iman. So when they were talking about the issues of beliefs, they would say Iman. And this doesn't mean that Iman is only beliefs, quite the contrary. But when they would talk about matters of Aqīdah, when they would write a book or write a treatise or an essay or anything on it, they would often be referred to as Iman. Also would be referred to as the Sunnah. So often, we'll see books that maybe the whole topic is related to beliefs, and it's referred to as the Sunnah, or a book of Sunnah. So, for example, with the label of Sunnah, there's the book As-Sunnah by Abu Bakr al-Khallal, and As-Sunnah by Abdullah bin Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and As-Sunnah by Harb al-Karmani, and As-Sunnah by Ibn Abi Asim, and there's Sharh As-Sunnah by al-Barbahari, and other books as well. So all these are related to Aqīdah, but the title of the book is As-Sunnah. And when it comes to Iman, or the usage of the word Iman to refer to Aqīdah, Ibn Abi Shayba rahimahullah has Al-Iman, or the book Al-Iman, and Abu Ubaid Al-Qasim ibn Salam has a book called Al-Iman as well, and these relate to matters of Aqīdah. So this was, in the earlier generations, how they would categorize this science, or this knowledge. We also have the word Aqīdah or i'tiqad maybe not in the Salaf, in the first 3 generations. It could be, but from what I know, that came a little bit later. And one of the main books that does use that terminology is the book of Al-Lalaka'i, which is Sharh Usul I'tiqad Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So these are some of the earlier books of Aqīdah, and something that is unique about the earlier books is they were also books of hadith, meaning that they would mention a topic and then mention the evidence for it with their chain of narration, similar to as we have, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and the rest of the books of hadith. So these were also considered usul, or some of the basic, or the basic books, because they contain narrations and weren't referring to other books. So that's just a side note. As for the importance, the Prophet ﷺ taught the Muslims their beliefs, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the Muslims their beliefs in the Quran. So for someone to say, as we hear very often now from many preachers, that it's not important to learn Aqīdah, or focusing on Aqīdah is maybe not in so many words, but they'll say that it's a waste of time, or it's not really needed. This is something completely false. And how do we know it's false? Well, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us many things in the Quran about the beliefs that we should have. So had it been a waste of time, had it been pointless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't have told us that. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us something, whether it's about the future, something about the past, something about that's present day, but it's something that's unseen, things that relate to paradise and the hellfire, and the reward and punishment in the grave, and the angels, and the jinn, and things that we can't see or that will come in the future. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us something about this, we have one of two choices. Either we can say that it was important for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to tell us this, so obviously then we need to take it seriously, or it wasn't important for Him to tell us this, and then we're insulting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying that He chose to tell us something that wasn't needed. And this is obviously an extremely dangerous matter in and of itself, let alone the implications that come with it. So when someone says now that learning Aqīdah isn't important, and the reason for that is the Prophet ﷺ didn't emphasize this. They'll try to say he emphasized salat, zakat, fasting, hajj, umrah, jihad, recitation of the Quran, being good to family, being good to neighbors, charity, and so on. So where did he focus on Aqīdah? When did he ever sit the Sahaba down and teach them Aqīdah? Yet, if we look at one of the most basic ahadith that's quoted, in khutbahs, and quoted in talks, and mentioned in books and small essays and so on, is the hadith of Jibreel, the angel Jibreel, coming to the Prophet ﷺ. And that's a long hadith. We don't need to quote the whole hadith, but the point is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the angel Jibreel to the Prophet ﷺ, and he came to him and sat with him, and the Sahaba said that they didn't know who this person was, and they didn't see any signs of travel on him, so meaning he wasn't from amongst them, but also there was no evidence that he had come from somewhere else. He was clean, his clothing was in a good state, and so on. So he asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ, and most people know this hadith, he told him the 5 pillars of Islam. And then he said, and what is Iman? And this is the important part for this topic. And the Prophet ﷺ said that you believe in Allah and His angels and His books and His messengers and the last day, and that you believe in the qadr, or the predestination, the good from amongst it and the bad. So here we see the importance of learning Aqīdah, because it wasn't as though a Sahabi asked the Prophet ﷺ something, and then the Prophet ﷺ answered it. This would, in and of itself, would show the importance, because had it not been important, the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't answer the question, or he wouldn't, pass on information. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't give him information for us to know if it wasn't important. But not only were they taught, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the angel Jibreel to the Prophet ﷺ in the presence of the Sahaba, so that he could ask questions, and the Prophet ﷺ would answer, and the Sahaba would hear. So this shows the importance of learning these things. And the Prophet ﷺ said that you believe in Allah. We know as Muslims, just believing that Allah exists doesn't make one Muslim, let alone upon the correct beliefs. Many non-Muslims believe that Allah exists, and that doesn't benefit them. Likewise, believing that Allah is the creator isn't sufficient. Believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider of sustenance, and He's the one who takes life and gives life, and so on, and all of the attributes of Allah, this doesn't make someone Muslim, let alone, as we said, make someone upon the right path. But it's the basic, or the basis for all the beliefs about Allah is obviously that you believe that Allah exists, and everything is based upon that. Likewise, believing in the angels. If someone says, I believe in the angels, but then believes in some other creation that isn't an angel, and says, no, that's an angel, yet the Prophet ﷺ might have described angels differently and given a description, and told us what the angels look like, or what their duties are, or what their names are, and then someone says, well, no, I believe in angels, but that's not correct. Well, then obviously this person wouldn't be Muslim. So, not only did the Prophet ﷺ answer these questions and tell us these 6 things that we need to believe, elsewhere he told us details about them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ in the Sunnah told us things about Allah, some of the attributes that He has, some of the things that He does, some of the things that He will do, and told us about the angels, what some of them look like, some of their attributes, some of their abilities, some of their names, some of their duties. Also about the books. Allah didn't just say, or didn't command us to believe in His books in general. No, He told us specific things, names of some of the books, the prophets that were given some of the books, that the books were changed. Some of the things that were in the previous books, were told in the Quran and the Sunnah. So we have to believe that they were in those books, even if we don't have access to them any longer. And then likewise about the day of resurrection, or the last day. We know many things in the Quran and the Sunnah, or from the Quran and the Sunnah, about what will take place on that day, how long it will be, some of the signs that will tell us it's drawing near, how the recompense will take place, who will be gathered with who, and so on. So if someone said, yes, I believe in the last day, but then described it in a completely different way, this wouldn't benefit them. And all of these things have to do with Aqīdah. So saying that it's not important, obviously, is an insult to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that means they told us something and focused on something that wasn't important. The other argument that's used by many people today is, to downplay the importance of Aqīdah, is that it causes disunity. And they'll say, why not unite upon the things that we agree upon, and leave the things that we don't agree upon. For example, they'll say, we agree that Salat is from Islam and that it's important, and Zakat is from Islam and it's important, and Hajj and Umrah and so on, and they'll mention these things. So why not, if everybody agrees on these things, then we should just, unite upon these, and discussing matters of Aqīdah cause disunity amongst the Ummah. However, this is also a false concept and a false or misconception that's put forth. The reason for this is, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us these things. So by focusing on it, we're focusing on what Allah focused on. Yes, we agree that salat is important, and zakat, and hajj, and umrah, and all of the the inward and outward aspects of Islam. But that doesn't mean that because one thing is important, other things aren't. That's ridiculous. Because someone could make the same statement about, say, well, why are you focusing on zakat? We need to be focusing on prayer. Many people don't pray, so why are you telling them about zakat if they don't pray? Well, yes, there's levels of teaching, but to say that because one thing is important, something else isn't important, isn't acceptable Islamically, and it isn't acceptable from an intellectual point of view. Also, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, He commanded unity, but He commanded unity upon a certain thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and hold, or this is the ayah that many people use about unity. And yes, it does 100% stress unity amongst the Muslimin. It tells us to be all together on the rope of Allah. So He tells us all together, and don't be or don't divide yourselves, or don't become divided or fall into division. And that's definitely correct. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this unity is upon the rope of Allah, or the handhold of Allah, or however we want to translate it. The rope of Allah. So it's upon a specific thing. It isn't just unity for the sake of unity. No, it's unity upon something. And this is something natural. There's no reason for someone to find this strange. When people get together, they get together for a reason. They get together upon something. If you go to work, you're together with that group for a certain goal, which is whatever your business or your employment is. If you get together with a group of friends, it's because you share certain interests, or you share certain qualities that have brought you together. So the idea that it's unity just for the sake of unity makes no sense whatsoever. It's unity upon something. And even according to those who try to downplay Aqīdah, they're using the same argument. They're saying unity upon Islam. So why not say unity for all humans? You've already specified it to Muslims. So what is the strangeness in saying, no, it's upon the correct Islam? And in order to be upon the correct Islam, or the correct understanding of Islam, it has to be learned. It's not something that you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you know everything about Islam. Or when you're born, it's already ingrained in you and it takes no learning. Or once you hit puberty, you have that knowledge. It just comes to you without any learning. No, learning takes effort. And knowledge comes through learning. So it's a natural, progression, or a step by step, that this needs this and this needs this. One thing to keep in mind is very often when Aqīdah is downplayed, there's a reason behind it, and that is not wanting to, what if we want to say, ruffle any feathers or anything like that, because by mentioning Aqīdah, there's obviously going to be things that others disagree with. If we say, let's say for example, that when we speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we accept His attributes as He said them. We don't, in the Arabic language, we don't interpret them in a way that goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Himself. We don't add anything, we don't remove anything, we don't say that it doesn't make sense, so therefore we're going to interpret it in our own way. When you say this, obviously there's groups amongst the ummah that will disagree with this, or will interpret it differently. So by saying that, you're going to upset a group of people, or a group of the population. And if you say that Iman is statements and actions, and it's inward and outward, this will also cause a dispute, even though there's a consensus that Iman is statements and actions. It's not only in the heart, it's inward and it's outward. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us this, but if we say it, there's going to be some people that get upset. Does this mean that you hide the truth as a means of unity, even though you're becoming united upon something that isn't correct? No, this is something that no rational person would say, especially when it comes to Islamic matters. And also, there's there's the extra issue today of popularity and business and the bottom lines of profit and money when it comes to pleasing as many or as much of as many segments of the population as possible, because Allah al-Musta'an, teaching has become a very lucrative business nowadays, and setting up courses and setting up workshops and whatever else. So if you alienate a certain aspect of your population by focusing on matters they don't want to hear about, this is going to affect your profit and your bottom line. So this is another reason that you'll notice that maybe not all of them, but many of the people who speak about not focusing on Aqīdah, you'll see that there is a vested interest in not offending people. And this shouldn't be the case. Obviously, we don't set out to offend anyone, and we don't set out to drive people away. But at the same time, our goal shouldn't be unconditional acceptance amongst people. It should be to propagate the correct beliefs in the best way possible, in the most beneficial way possible, without unnecessarily offending someone, and not in and of itself because that's the problem. It's because we don't want to drive people away from the correct beliefs, and our interaction with people can have a major effect. And other evidence, of the importance of Aqīdah is when the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh bin Jabal and any of his other messengers, when he would tell them what to call the people to. And in the hadith, when he sent Mu'adh to Yemen, he said that the first thing they should call them to is La ilaha illallah. And we know it's not just a statement, because the hypocrites made the statement of La ilaha illallah, but inside they didn't believe. So the belief needed to be there as well. If you don't know the meaning of La ilaha illallah, obviously your statement of it is useless. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ, that we sent a messenger in every ummah, or every group of people, every nation, that they should worship Allah and avoid the taghut. Part of belief is knowing what is worship of Allah, what makes something an act of worship, what makes something a taghut, in order for it to be avoided. All of these things have to do with beliefs. And even the salat and the zakat and the things that that people focus on, these are based upon beliefs. Someone won't pray if they don't believe prayers from Islam. Someone won't give zakat if they don't believe zakat is from Islam. Someone, they won't perform hajj if they don't believe hajj is part of Islam. So even this idea that we focus on the acts of worship but not the beliefs, falls apart because they come part and parcel together. One is based upon the other, and we know in the hadith in the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, which means that there's a piece of flesh in the body. If it is good, the whole body will be good, and if it is bad, the whole body will be bad, and that is the heart. So we know that our acts have to do with what takes place inside, and likewise, what takes place outside or externally has an effect on the inside. There's a reciprocity or a reciprocal a nature between the two. So to focus on one and not the other, not only are we leaving half of the equation, but leaving that half has an effect on the other half. So this is just a very brief recording on some of the reasons why it's important to learn Aqīdah, and inshallah in the next week we'll be starting, and I hope those listening will benefit from what's to come. Wallahu alam, sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.